Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Seychelle Van Poel.
I'm Via Williams.
And I'm Wendy Papazan. We talk a lot about time management here on the Empire Building podcast, and it's probably because time is literally the most important and precious resource that we have. Yesterday, Via and Sarah and I were actually on, we were speaking for someone, and I introduced this idea of my new goal of being a time billionaire.
It was so good.
Love that.
I just love this idea. So it's sort of like being a billionaire, where if you're a billionaire, you have all the money that you want. And a time billionaire is actually you have all the time to do all the things that you want. So today we're going to talk about time management and a nice little framework to basically help you with your time. We call it the 4 Ds of time management. This is not something that we created. It's actually something that was first introduced in a book called The Power of Focus by Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and Les Hewitt. And it was just one of those things that became, instantly popular. And I think a lot of you have probably already heard this framework before, but the point of it is to really help us separate the fake urgent tasks from the highly important ones so that we can gain control of our time.
I love that. And, this reminds me of a really fun movie of dodgeball where the rules are duck, dive, dip, and dodge.
Those are Seychelle's 40s.
Those are my 40s. We got to duck, dip, dive, and dodge, all time management. No. I mean, come on. It was a great game back in the day.
It's kind of good for time management. Duck, dive,
really
dip,
is.
and dodge.
Yeah.
But we digress.
That's okay. So, Wendy, what are the 4 Ds?
Well, so the 4 Ds are do it, delete it, defer, or sometimes people say delay it, and then delegate it. So, Via, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off with the Nike number 1. Just do it. So do it, right?
Yeah, we need straight on here for that.
I know.
Like anything in life, we need to have like a theme song. Every time we have a framework that's going to come up, we have like a framework music bed.
Framework.
Right? Framework. Oh,
That's good.
That was surprisingly really, like, that was, who knew?
I always feel like it's Wayne's World a little bit, but then you
Wayne's World, excellent.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be perfect.
That would be fun.
There's probably a copyright thing there. All right. So do it. So this means, action. And there does, there are frameworks for this. Like, how do you decide which D to do, right? So a couple of years ago, it was actually a long time ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I read this book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. Caveat. So I recommend the book. It's called Getting Things Done. Caveat.
We should put that in the show notes.
Extraordinarily hard to get through. It is not the kind of book that was easy to turn the pages on. Like, it's the kind of book I just kind of make myself read, So it wasn't easy for me to read that book, but it was a good book, and it taught me a lot of things because I am just not naturally disciplined in this area.
Got a question for you. Did you use some of the ideas from the book Getting Things Done to finish the book? If the book was difficult?
No. Yes, I did now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them, which I'm happy to share. I think it actually goes well with this one. So that was a good question. So I know you were trying to be kind of funny, but I think it was a good
but
question,
I mean, it was kind of serious at the same time,
I know. I agree.
It's like you wonder if they did it on purpose.
One of his rules is the 2-minute rule. And when something comes across your desk or across your screen and you can do it in 2 minutes or less, David Allen says, just go ahead and do it right then and now. So one example, he always says, when you bring your mail in, right then and there, sort it over the garbage can.
Yes.
Don't wait. Don't delay it. Don't throw it in a pot. Like, get into the habit of doing it, because that's less than 2 minutes. And, same thing if you want to zero base your email. Now, if you are friends with me on Instagram, you will see I just posted on my story. I have about 248,000 emails that on the little red icon circle, on my phone. So clearly I don't do that. Yeah, I know. It freaks people out. Clearly doesn't freak me out, but it freaks people.
I'm an excellent toggler though of my email. Like I can go in and find something from like 2013 that you sent me. Because I have the brain where it's organized in my head, but if you looked at my email, I'm with you. You would be
I
very
search
afraid.
everything.
You'd be very afraid. Yeah.
You'd be afraid. Yeah, you should be afraid. So,
how many emails do you have,
funny.
Seychelle?
I just like
curious.
almost 25,000.
I will clear mine out and start over again.
There are some people that are breathing deep.
They're
now,
deep
listening
breathing.
to
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
I got visceral reactions on my Instagram story. Actually.
Really?
But here's the thing: for a lot of people, though, who Seychelle, it's hard for us to relate to, but for a lot of people who zero base their email, that's kind of their philosophy. Like, if I'm going to block time to check my email, it's going to take less than 2 minutes. I'm just going to do it now. You and I just have different brainwaves.
So I'm going to take 14 months, and I will start deleting all of my 25,000 emails, and I'll see you in 2024.
You just throw them all over to some random folder is what you do and just start over in your head.
I'll tell you though, I can find anything in there. So I mean,
way.
they'll be like, you know what? I purged my
delete
email. I don't
stuff
have this.
still, or do you just not delete
and
anything
what happens
anymore?
is I keep increasing my
undeleted.
memory. Like I keep the storage.
We're just on the
now
Google
we're
Drive
like
plan that just is
gigabyte
infinite at this
upon
point.
gigabyte.
It's just infinite. Yeah.
But to say
I'm not
I
zero
can search
base,
things up
but I keep
from
it
like
under 100.
2013.
And it's like my to-do list is what my email
Exactly.
is. Like I'll have about 80. I mean, like during the day, it'll pop up like over 200 and some, but like,
Yeah.
but by Monday morning, I'd love to have like 75 emails or less. And it's kind of a to-do list for me. So.
Well, that's why you are winning in the email battle that we are clearly losing.
It's not a battle to win. It is not a battle to win. In fact, actually, it was really interesting. I read an article in the New York Times this week, and it talks about how this parent was getting annoyed that their kid never checks their email. And they're like, you know what? That's actually a good thing. You know, so many of us waste so much time in email. It's disgusting. You
Well,
know,
I mean, honestly, I star the priority ones. Yeah, I star the priority ones, and like a lot of email that I get are FYIs or CC'd on stuff, and it's like I don't, you know, sometimes I need to keep it for record keeping, but I'm not going to go and create 19 bajillion folders. Like it just.
Okay,
you know,
I did
when I'm
that
in meetings
once.
all day, I tried it. It did not go well. Yeah.
Okay, I totally tried that once, right? And I like spent hours, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting it together in my email. And then like a couple months later, people were like getting really angry at me, like Via, like you missed. We invited you. It was Inman. They're like, we invited you to come speak, and we didn't hear from you, whatever. And then I realized, oh yeah, I forgot everything went to a folder. I set them up and then never checked them again. I just wasn't used to it. Fail.
I will say
started
I
deleting
zero
all my 30 folders.
I do zero base like by text messages though, or
yes, 100%
social
my
media
texts are
inbox.
completely
Like
zeroed
those,
out.
I'm zeroed out on. So if you want to
Ditto.
get me, it's better to text or social media
Me too.
me instead of email me if you need something.
Oh,
So,
I'm obsessed with those being zeros. Text, DMs. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm the same
Those
way.
are
Isn't
zero.
that funny?
interesting. Well, now I
That
know
is
how to get you.
interesting.
I'm not going to email you.
Well, you
That's
never
good to know.
do. I mean, you
Well,
text
that's
me anyway.
probably why.
But here's what's interesting about it. So let's talk about the do it. So for Seychelle and I, clearing out our email is not a 2-minute task.
No.
So we probably need to, and we'll move on to delay it or delete it, right? But you know, whatever it is, I was telling the ladies this morning, I read the most interesting article because Wendy, you asked me earlier, what did I use to finish the book, right? The big thing I got out of getting things done, the 2-minute rule is great, but that's not the big like aha I got. The big aha I got was unfinished loops create stress. And that it gave me if that book taught me anything, it gave me the awareness that unfinished loops are like broken records in your head and in your mind, and that's what caused me stress. So I was telling the ladies, there's a phenomena that defines this, and it's called the Zeigarnik effect. If you're Russian, and you're probably criticizing my pronunciation, I believe that's the Zeigarnik or the Zeigarnik effect, right? So check this out. It's so interesting. So it was, there's a Russian psychologist named Ruma Zeigarnik, and she was sitting at a really busy restaurant, and she was observing, and she noticed that the waiters had better memories of the unpaid orders. So they were unfinished tasks, right? Then the ones that the bill had been settled and paid. And so she said they couldn't remember exact details of the order when she asked them, but if the bill hadn't been paid, they could recite exactly what was on their ticket. So she started realizing that failing to complete a task creates enough of a cognitive tension that it keeps your brain circling back to it like a broken record. And that cognitive tension causes stress. Now that can be good and bad, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if you are feeling stress on a topic, you need to finish that loop. That's why, and Wendy made the point when we were talking about it. Wendy's like, well, yeah, that's why you wake up at 3 a.m. And it's true. You wake up because of unfinished loops in your head.
Yeah. I got to remember that and that and that.
And that's when you got to do the first D. That's when you need to do it, because otherwise that stress, and maybe doing it is another D, but you're at least like, okay, if I'm going to delay it, I'm going to write down exactly what and when, and that's probably enough to put it to bed. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but one of the things that I do is when we talk about delegation is when I'm doing my 411, I have a whole nother tab that I call my 80%. And I have all the different people in my world. And if I have something that I know needs to get done that week, but I don't want to do it, I put it on that person's list. And then when I'm meeting with them on their 411, I just go over it with them. So that's the last D. But if you've got some of those unfinished loops and there's people in your world who can do things, it's just a way to like not only put it on a list, but also like assign it to someone. Yeah.
I love that.
I love
the
that.
other thing-
I actually will have, when I have my email open, there are things that are for other people that I know aren't urgent. But then on Monday, I'll just have that conversation with them.
I like that organizational structure, Wendy. Via, this reminds me too of your New Year's resolution of not starting something you can't finish.
Yeah, my word of the year is finish this year.
Yeah, finish. And that whole part of doing it and unfinished loops totally like logically leads me there for you. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
For me, it's a problem. I mean, I'm just not naturally, planning, daily rituals, daily routines, daily habits do not come naturally to me. Much more of a free-spirited creative thinker, so I have to box myself in a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I think it's awesome, and I think awareness around it. Yeah. No, you can't. No. So I love that you've created a framework around it. The second
Wayne's
one
World,
for
excellent
framework. Okay. The second one is delete it. And as you know, also known for those of you who are already using this technique, right? But deleting is the easiest of the 4 Ds to implement because you don't have much to do other than just get rid of it, delete it. And it's like Shakespeare says, right? To do or not to do. That is the question. And so, for me, email triage is not going to be my best example because I don't do that, but Wendy does. So, that's a great example of how you could go in and triage with your email, right, and do massive deletes. Or making sure you're staying at like 100 or less where you have like a goal that you're setting under. Yeah, Wendy, what?
That feels impossible.
Well, it's not because I do it, so...
Yeah.
But here's something that I was thinking about when I was looking this over this morning is I was out to dinner last night and someone at the dinner table was telling me that they've moved 2 times and they have one whole wall in their garage full of unpacked boxes that they moved twice. Mm-hmm. And this guy was just telling me how he's trying to convince his wife just to throw them away because obviously if they've moved 2 times, they don't need that stuff anymore. And sometimes I think we get into this, it's like with clutter, it's like whether it's information clutter or life clutter, we think sometimes we need to organize it, and you can go to, what is it like, what's the organization place? Not Bed Bath & Beyond, but the other one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's,
you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's full of organizational stuff. And you could go there and you could, container store. Yeah. Thank you. You could go there, you could spend $1 gajillion and come home and organize all your stuff. Or you could just pitch a bunch of it and you have a lot less digital or real life clutter.
Yeah. You know, the whole idea of minimalist living is something that I absolutely love. Like we're constantly, whether it's on my calendar, like I have been over the last 6 months, like on a mission to really make sure my calendar reflects what really needs to be on there and what the real priorities are versus all the clutter. And that's actually something we're doing with our team structure right now is we're going in and deleting all of the unnecessary meetings, all the unnecessary calls, all the unnecessary Zooms that might have been put on for a purpose at one point but are no longer serving a purpose. And we're literally auditing all of that right now on our team's organization going, is this here and serving a very clear and specific purpose that's moving the needle in our top 20%? Or is this an 80% of something that really isn't moving the needle on anything and really shouldn't be there? And so like pipeline is a great example. Like our sales team, right? You manage your pipelines. Well, we have those, and then we have your goal setting, like 411 meeting with your leader on our team. We've talked about the 411 in previous episodes. And we are combining those now to be one meeting, right? That may add 5 minutes to that one meeting, but isn't a separate one. And we're just deleting the other one off the calendar. And so that's something that I've really been purposeful with is the word delete, specifically with things around my calendar. And especially when I'm overwhelmed, that's the first thing I go and do is take a look at my calendar for the next 3 weeks and say, what did I commit to a long time ago on here that really doesn't need to be on here? Or what is it that I can remove that just is not essential to moving the needle right now? So that's been a big one for me.
I was just going to add, it's funny that you said that because when I was looking through this episode, I was like, we need to talk about our calendar with Delete It because I've been struggling to do this night before plan. This is my new habit I'm trying to build, and it's just not coming naturally to me at all.
Night before is hard though, because it's so
before
close
I
to
leave.
the thing.
Ideally, it's when I leave the office. The challenge I'm falling into is my unpredictable schedule, which means it is pushing it tonight. That's a different topic. But one of them is look at your calendar the next day and delete appointments that aren't serving you, that aren't in your priorities. And I was sharing with this group. Wendy was mentioning her, and Sarah and I spoke yesterday, and I was sharing with them that for the first time over the last few weeks, I've started to do that very minimally, but I just did it today. And it makes me feel both simultaneously guilty and great, you know, because you're like, ugh, like I'm canceling on someone, but I just can't, like I am so much calmer when I've done it 3 or 4 times, and I have been so much calmer and better off. And probably I wasn't going to be that present. I probably wasn't going to be the best Via at those meetings anyway, right? It just it wasn't it's not the right domino right now with everything I have going on. And I have come to peace with, you know, deleting some of my calendar. So when we talk about, you know, do it or delete it, it can be meetings with other people. It can be tasks. I always, whenever I'm coaching people, the coaching habit is a framework I use a lot for coaching people. And they talk about, right, the 3 Ps. So projects, people, or patterns, like habits or behaviors. And so I find myself when I'm thinking about myself or coaching others, well, is this a project problem, a people problem, or like a habit, a recurring behavioral problem, right? And so I kind of wonder if that doesn't play into this a little bit.
Yeah, I think it absolutely
does. We can ask ourselves projects, people, patterns. So not to delete people, but
sometimes you do.
Well,
though.
meetings
sometimes you do. Yeah,
meetings can be. I love that you're doing that, Seychelle. I think that's just so smart. I mean, we just get into these ruts of meetings.
Yeah,
and we actually did something. Well, we're doing the 12-week year, which has been fun. And
I feel like everybody's doing that. Side note, like everybody.
We're in our second year of it. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah, we're in our second year of 12 week year. It's great.
Did I tell you what we're doing for our prize?
No.
So this is so exciting. So we get a prize if we hit our goal, and our goal is 100 referrals and 100 under contract, and we have a virtual assistant on our team who has a piece of land, and it was on her goals to start saving for a house this year. So if we hit our goal, our team is going to get Julie a house.
What? In the Philippines?
Awesome.
Yeah.
How much does a house cost there?
I love that.
$10,000.
I just got goosebumps.
I love
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Does she know? Is it a surprise or does she know?
She knows. We told her it was a surprise. We told her on our huddle last week. She was flipping out. She's flipping out. Of course.
I love
awesome.
that.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So if any of y'all have a referral for Austin, Texas, send it in the next 10 weeks. Yeah.
I
That's
love that.
amazing.
Let's get Julie a house. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
That is amazing. I just, that is making me, I mean, I'm 1,000% stealing that.
Yeah.
That's really
amazing.
special and amazing. All right. Anyway, I'm glad we sidetracked on that. That was
Yeah.
definitely
Sorry.
worth
Total
it, so.
sidetrack.
No, it's worthwhile. I think that's
So
freaking
worth
awesome.
it.
So,
Yeah.
Wendy, what's the next D?
Well, the next D is really defer it. Decisions are tough, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard to say no to things. A lot of us are yes people. I'm kind of a yes person.
Admittedly, over here, yeah.
So the nice thing about deferring it is really you're not deleting it, you're not doing it, but you're saying like it's not right now, which is appropriate sometimes, right? So this could be a new project. I know sometimes we come back from events and things like that, and we have like a really good idea that we're like, ooh, this would be perfect for our team. But just having the common sense to be like, well, we're kind of full now, so let's think about that in Q4. Or a new project that doesn't require that isn't urgent, right? You can look at your calendar and say, gosh, I'm just packed this week. I'm not going to commit to it. Like, I just feel like I commit to things like very quickly, like Jay is so good at it. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm free in 17 weeks. Like, I'm going to book you then, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do whatever I can do to squeeze you in the next 3 days,
Same way.
And it's just, it's not good.
Okay. I just wanted to throw in here a little hack on this one. If you're not deferring it, and I don't know if this applies to you, Wendy, but I know it, has applied to me. Maybe think about the fact that you don't have a script. And so I didn't. And so in absence of knowing what to say, I would default to yes. Right. And so I just had to get really good. I had to, out of necessity, get really good because I have so many people coming at me. And then what happens is we go to our company events and the company has an agenda that wants to, get everyone excited about. So then all my people come back to me and they go, we want to do this and this. And it just happened yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, that is a great idea. That's not the next domino. So I'm probably not going to focus on that one till May or June. Okay. So I typically will say it's not the next domino, or it's great idea, probably not top 3 priority. We need to, get this done. And a great word to use in this script is the word because. There's a lot of research behind using that word, as we all know, that if you say because, no matter what comes after that, people just tend to soften on your response. So I'll say, you know what, that is a great idea. And I'm probably not going to focus a lot of time and resources on that until May or June because we have to get these other 2 things out first that are way overdue. Oh, okay. Right. So if you use the word because, and if you have just a go-to script, and mine tends to sound like that, like a domino, like it's not the next domino or from the one thing, or it's just not, that's, I'm hearing you, you're seeing, like I'm acknowledging you, and it's probably not going to happen now. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well,
That's
I usually
awesome.
say it's not my one thing. And Jay says that all the time. And he's like, well, it's my brand. He doesn't overschedule because he's like, well, that's my brand. Not overscheduling.
Yeah.
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 Ben really taught me on the overscheduling thing. I have done a lot better. We've talked about this before with a lot more white space, like the even the delete, even the deferring it, just going back to the schedule again. And it takes a long time to get used to, in my experience anyway. Like, I'm like, am I working hard enough? I'm not working hard enough.
A lot of times people want something from you right away. And so you can just ignore it. Like people are lazy. They'll ask you for something and you just ignore it. Or if somebody's trying to get on your calendar and you don't really want to, you don't necessarily want to talk to them, you can easily say, thank you so much for your request. I'm full up right now. Can you circle back around in about 7 weeks? And 90% of those people are never going to circle back around.
I love that. 7 weeks is that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So when you're deferring it, you still want to make sure that you tackle those tasks, though, right? You don't want to have all these deferred tasks. So you can time block for it, right? You can say these are all the things that I deferred. And for me, I use my Panda planner, and I have my little I get my priorities done, but then I have my little list. And sometimes what I end up doing is I just bounce the stuff on the list, all the way till the end of the week. And then once a month, I have time block some time just for like personal tasky type stuff, right? And so when that day rolls around, I can just like book doctor's appointments, all that kind of stuff that we just don't prioritize. But then, when you're looking at those tasky things, what happens for me sometimes too is, again, even if I thought it was a priority 2 weeks ago, sometimes it's not a priority anymore. So you just end up deleting it, right? So, and there's just a fine line between deferring and procrastinating indefinitely.
That's fair. That's very fair.
We call that kicking the can down the road. And what literally that is a phrase we use in our organization. And, I'm in full agreement with everything you said, because what I have found is that if the person, or, the 3 Ps, if the person, project, it's really person or the project, is important enough, it will continue to reemerge. They will continue to reemerge, and, it won't go away. But a lot of them go away. It's interesting. I found myself thinking going way back to the very origins of our podcast, back in the quarantine days.
Oh, back to 2020.
Back to 2020, which feels I don't
like
even
4
know if that
decades
feels
ago,
yesterday or 10 years ago.
Well, guys, we've been doing this for over 2 years now.
I know. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
It does not feel like 2 years, so it feels shorter. But then it feels
that
longer.
Part feels shorter, but then
I know.
Other parts
so
feels shorter. It's a weird concept of time. But I was thinking back to that about how one of the biggest lessons I learned, because I think we did an episode on that, like on what were the lessons we learned. And one of the ones I learned, Wendy, I was just listening to you talk, and I was like, I learned that during the quarantine, was like people's deadlines and timeframes are not mine. My organization has priorities. I personally have priorities. I know my assignment. Like, I know what I'm accountable to and how, what I have to move the needle on.
Yeah.
And, I like many new leaders, I think when I was a newer leader, I just wanted to please. I wanted everybody to like me. In my case, I came into this organization and I didn't say no, Wendy, at all. And I just wasn't deferring anything. And so what started to happen inadvertently is just that I was just letting people down. One human can only do so much, And so you have to get good at scripts, and you have to get good at deferring things. Otherwise, everyone's going to get mad at you. It's going to have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Well, and the 80-20 rule is in effect. I mean, if you're starting out in your career, at actually any point in your career, if you're knocking it out of the park on your 80%, but you're failing at your 20%, you're going to get fired. That's the thing. And if you are killing it at your 20%, you're going to probably get promoted, and someone's going to come in and help you because you're so good at the 20%. So
That's
continue to
perfect way
focus on
describe
what
that.
you're good at. Delegate the rest, which is our last D, right, Bia?
Yep, delegate. So this is a big one. And all the people I coach and consult and mentor, this is typically the biggest challenge, right, is delegation, because everyone thinks that if they delegate it, it won't be done as good as if they did it. And by the way, that is true. It probably won't be. And I also know that the one thing that most happy and successful people have in common is that they have just come to peace with delegating certain things in their life, right? The question is, what are they? And I mean, Wendy talks about being a time billionaire. That's an awesome due to delegation, right? I mean, there's some other things in there, like there's some passive income goals that fall into that and different things, but in order to delegate, the biggest struggle most successful people have is that they come to a critical mass and they're so busy, and it takes more time to train someone to delegate them than just to do it themselves. So they fall into a cycle. We talked about the 3 Ps. Well, this is a pattern cycle. They fall into a pattern of bustling through it, and it just never ends, and they keep hitting ceilings. And so at one point you have to make a decision that it's going to get a little harder before it gets easier, and you're going to write checklists and write a process and write playbooks and train people so that you can delegate, right? And Wendy's got a bunch of great hacks for delegation. I think of her as delegation queen. So I'll toss it over to you, Wendy. However, before I do that, I will say that I think for most really busy people, and for me in my life anyway, what I have come to peace with doing is paying someone to follow me around. When I am in a very busy crunch time, I understand that paying someone to follow me around, it might take a month or 2 for them to learn it, but that month or 2 would have gone by anyway. And they'll probably learn more literally hearing me on the phone, seeing me in action, seeing me with clients, seeing me with people, than, if I would take hours out of my everyday trying to teach them like in a classroom setting. That's just not realistic for me. So it's time or money. And so I've kind of opted, well, if I can throw some money at this and have someone come to my organization and apprentice, so to speak, with whoever they need to train with, the playbook will typically emerge. That's what I found. But Wendy, you've got a lot of great things here on delegation.
I mean, I'd love to just go back to email, because I know for a lot of people it just eats up a lot of their time. And so if you are the kind of person who does want to, fewer emails in their email box, I'll just kind of walk you through what I do, which is, if you've got Gmail, you can already separate it into categories. I know people who don't do that, and I don't know why they don't do that, because all of your forums, all of your junk mail, and then whatever the other, all of your Facebook notifications, and then all of your regular stuff goes into separate categories. Okay. So I don't ever even look at the other 3. I go in every so often and just delete them all without even looking at them. So far, my life is totally fine. And then when I wake up, a lot of times I will do my email before I start my day, because I like to just see if there's anything that's important in there. So I'll just scan through my email, and while I'm doing it, I'm just deleting. Probably about 50% of my emails is all junk anyway. I just know it's junk. It's like this. I get some things from the Daily Stoic. Sometimes I read it, sometimes I don't. It's kind of like sometimes that stuff is like having New Yorker magazines. When I lived in New York, you get a whole stack in the corner, and it's like New Yorker guilt. So I don't do that. I just delete it, right? And then once you've got that, you're really looking at the things that need to be addressed, right? So then I kind of go back and I address the things that are in the 2-minute rule, right? These are the things that I can tackle right now. It's like knock that out, knock that out, knock that out, knock that out. And then there are things that are the priorities. So if I get let's say I get a referral from another agent in another place, that's a priority, right? I don't want that to sit in my email inbox for 12 hours, right?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I need to take care of that right away. So those things are the priority. And then I just leave everything else, and I just let it sit there. And then maybe in the afternoon, I'll do it again. But usually what I do is there's a lot of built up stuff by Friday, or really Sunday. So Sunday, when I sit down with my 411, I'm looking through all those emails and thinking how can I assign these to different people? And that's when I take my 411 out. And sometimes I put the things on the 411. It's like, oh, well, I got a message from my attorney and they said I need to review the wills. Okay, I don't have anyone in my life that can do that, right? But there might be something there that my director of operations can do, and then I'll click on that tab. So I'm going through my email, and I'm adding things to my 411 that are for me, that are probably tasks. I have 80% task list for me. Sometimes they're priorities, and then I have my tab that's 80% for everybody else in my world. So Margot runs her best life. I've got stuff for her. I've got my director of operations. I've got my guy who runs my home services. I've got my top 2 agents. I got my director of lead gen, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just plugging stuff in. And then I meet with all those people on Monday. And on Monday, I'm just pulling that up during the 411 and I'm saying, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? So that's kind of how my email gets situated. And of course, like lots of other stuff comes up during the week that I'm adding to those two lists, but that's really what that looks like.
That's really good. And I think you're also really good about, your not to-do lists and kind of keeping running lists like, oh, it's during my day. I'm doing this thing and I hate this thing. It's going to go on this list, right? Mm-hmm. And, your not to-do list is also obviously a really good delegation list. But, the other thing to talk about, ladies, is at home, and we use this analogy so much. I feel like we're probably overusing it. And I'm going to say it again, which is that your family they're not going to remember, nor do they care, who made the dinner. What they'll remember is sitting down with you at dinner and remember having those family dinners. So you can look at, if you're in a client-facing business, client-facing stuff may need to be you, but everything behind you in the background doesn't have to be you. Same with your household. They'll remember a clean house. They don't care who cleaned it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it doesn't have to be cleaned exactly the way you would clean it. It's like you said at the beginning of this section, Via. Like I think about my lovely housekeeper who I love. She's worked with me for 12 years. She's done lots of make-readies and cleaned my house every week for a long time. And she still doesn't do everything like perfectly, because maybe she's got a helper there or whatever. And, she'll like, for instance, this morning she had the like little pet food bowls on top of the pet. And I'm like, ugh, like I would never have done that. I would have put it right back where I found it. But it's like a moment of frustration that ends in a second. And and at the same time, I don't want to clean my own house anymore, Yep. So. And that's how it is with most things. So, yeah. Well, you guys, today was great. We learned the 4 Ds of effective time management. And it's really, time management is something that we all struggle with because we've got so many priorities. We're overwhelmed with information. Most of us that are building our empires have a lot on our plates. But, the 4 Ds really involves just figuring out what to act on now, what to act on later, or what to act on never. And the 4 Ds is just a nice framework for that. So just remember next time you're feeling overwhelmed with all your stuff, you can do it, delete it, defer it, or delegate it. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And we hope you go out and use all of your extra time to build a big business and an even bigger life. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.